Hey everyone, I just got back from the theater after watching the prime premiere screening of Superman. I have a little David Corenswet as Superman here. I'm going to put it behind me for this review. I have a lot to say about Superman. Obviously, this is the first big entry into the new DCU being helmed by James Gunn and Peter Safran. We got Creature Commandos before, which teased a little bit, but this is our first real glimpse at what this new DCU is going to be. And I have a lot to talk about with this movie because, let's start from the top. And I'm going to be a little bit at a loss for words because it's still so fresh in my brain, and that's why I wanted to talk about it right away because I think there's so much to talk about with this movie. And the first thing I want to do is talk about the cast, because I think the cast of this film is probably the strongest point of the film and essentially what makes the film work. David Corenswet is Superman. I'm just going to say it straight out. This David Corenswet Superman, the Superman that James Gunn wrote and David Corenswet is playing, is the Superman I've always wanted to see in live action. We've gotten that in comics, we've gotten that in animated series. We've kind of gotten that with the Christopher Reeves Superman. But this feels like all that manifests into David Corenswet's portrayal of Superman and Clark Kent. We have the Boy Scoutness. We have the commitment and the passion to do good. We have the strength and the resolve. We have the love and the kindness that Superman is supposed to portray. And we have that juxtaposed by a world that doesn't appreciate that, essentially. Doesn't want that or doesn't work like that. And that's what makes David Corenswet as Superman work so well. It's his, you feel the genuine want and need and drive to do good despite everything. And the fact that he's able to do good and protect people drives him so much more. And it's beautiful to watch because sometimes I feel that way. I feel like I constantly want to try to help people and do good, even when the world tells you, it's woke or it's too soft you're soft for wanting to be kind to people and to care about people and do good. There's all the noise and the bullshit out there telling you that, you shouldn't want to do that. It's stupid. It's cheesy. It's cringe again. Some people say it's woke to want to be good and kind to people and to be driven by wanting to help people. David Corenswet and that Superman, the Superman we get in this is that. He is driven by good. He is driven by his friends, family, and his blossoming love for Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan playing Lois Lane. I've been a big fan of Rachel Brosnahan for a long time. I'm a big fan of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I watched all that series. I've watched it 2 or 3 times, maybe more than that, front to back. When she was in contention to play Lois Lane, I could not rationalize anybody else in my mind playing her. Rachel Brosnahan is the quintessential Lois Lane. I don't think I've ever seen a representation, again, outside of comics and maybe the animated series, have a better representation of Lois Lane. She just has that grit that we saw back in the Maisel days. She ports it over, brings all her research about reporting into this, and then her research on the character Lois Lane, and squishes it all together and exudes the kind of the strength and the tenacity and the fiercefulness of Lois Lane. And the conflict of Lois Lane to want to be a reporter, to also want to do good, but tell the truth, tell the right story. I think Rachel Brosnahan nailed it. And we see a little bit of her conflict about her relationship with Clark, and I think that's something that may be a pattern as we go forward with Superman in this universe. Lois and Clark don't always see eye to eye. You have the reporter, the really truth-seeking, and then the good, no matter what, want to do good Clark Kent, Superman, and that causes conflict, and we see that a little bit here. We see the conflict that causes, and I like that they got that into the movie, because Lois Lane is not somebody that is just super agreeable with Superman. She doesn't agree with everything he does. she believes his heart is in the right place. And we see a little bit of an evolution of that in this movie, and maybe a little bit of doubt at first, or at some points we see her try to understand that a little bit more about where his heart really lies. And obviously we get the scene where Lois and Clark say they love each other, or Clark says it first and then Lois says it. So we're beginning the DCU with Lois and Clark already knowing each other, dating for a little bit, only a couple months, but saying the L word. So we have an in love Lois and Clark at the beginning of the relationship, which is beautiful to see. And then we have the dastardly, the sniveling, the son of a bitch Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult. And they don't really hold back with Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. He definitely plays a little bit more of a snide version of Lex, like I kind of thought we saw in the trailer. He's definitely that version, but he is pretty ruthless. He is very like a nerdy Lex Luthor, but he's very ruthless, and he's very cutting and specific, and he will do whatever it takes to get his way, whatever it might be, whatever path he sees forward for himself, whatever truth he has in his own heart about what he needs to do for the world, or what he thinks he needs to do, or what he needs to do for himself. Ultimately, it's incredible selfishness and narcissism. And he does some pretty terrible things in this movie. He kills a innocent civilian that sells falafel, that new Clark or new Superman. He's imprisoned hundreds, maybe thousands of people in a pocket universe. He also uses science super recklessly in this universe. Nicholas Hoult nails it. I started, gritting my jaw when I would hear him speak. The stuff he did with Krypto, the stuff he was doing to Superman. I mean, he's you don't really get how ruthless he is. He seems very weak and snot and kind of like snivelly, but he's a bastard. He's a son of a bitch. And I think Nicholas Hoult does a great job at that. And I'm super curious to see how this character evolves in this new DCU. I'm so glad Lex Luthor is Nicholas Hoult, because I could see Hoult going through this evolution as Lex in a very, very interesting way. Obviously, we're seeing him kind of at a peak of power. He's figured out how to basically manhandle Superman, essentially. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm really curious to see the future of Lex Luthor in this universe. Lex is so pervasive in DC Comics and the animated series. He has his hands in everything. So I think we're going to find out what else Lex has been up to pre-Superman, what he's been up to the past couple of years. Now, here's a standout, and a lot of people have been talking about him as a standout, but Edi Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, beautiful, marvelous. This is a character I'm not super well versed in, and I know little bits here and there, but I thought he did a fantastic job. Like, he brought that character to a life in a way I haven't really seen before. I think this is going to be a standout for a lot of people. I think people are going to want to see more of him. He did something with this character. Funny, very, very direct, specific. Something about the way he talks. Also, something, just his choice of language and his kind of outrage when things don't go exactly as he expects they're going to is just a beautiful representation of this Mr. Terrific character, which I think might actually set the standard going forward for what Mr. Terrific is going to be. It's like one of those performances where he's going to set the new standard for this character. Similar to what Robert Downey Jr. did with Iron Man. I think Eddie just set the new standard for Mr. Terrific, because people are going to want to see this type for a long time, I think. So very excited to see more of him in this universe and see how he gets fleshed out. I don't know what else he's going to get his hands into, but I think we're expecting something. We could expect very interesting things from him. We got to see Metamorpho a little bit, played by Anthony Carrigan, who I am familiar with from Gotham and Blade Runner 2049. He's in a scene in that. He's in the kind of the archival scene. But we didn't get too much from him, but we got enough. We kind of got a bite for his personality. I mean, you saw little Joey, which was cool. It's interesting, like I said, with Lex Luthor, it's interesting to see how much he has his hands into already. We're getting little bits and pieces, but obviously he already had Metamorpho trapped and ready to change into Kryptonite to depower Superman, essentially. Interesting. This is why I think we're going to hear a lot more about what Lex has been up to. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner played it to a T. Nathan Fillion nailed Guy Gardner. I was actually expecting him to be a little bit more of a dick. He was a little bit. I was expecting him to go full like jerk as I know Guy Gardner to be, and he was that, but he was a little bit more. He definitely played up the narcissistic angle of it, and we're gonna get him in the Lantern series, so we'll probably see him next before anybody else. The next movie isn't till Supergirl, but we're getting Lanterns and we're getting Peacemaker season 2 in the meantime. By the way, Peacemaker showed up. Isabela Merced, we didn't get to see her do too much. We got to understand her Hawkgirl a little bit and the way she chooses things. And this was a good counterbalance to what Superman is trying to do. Hawkgirl was fine killing like anything, ending people, essentially. So it was cool to see how the Justice Gang, and that was the recurring bit in the movie, the Justice Gang, basically hired by Maxwell Lord or under, they work for him, how they differ in their approach to superheroing and how that's going to cause a mess. But it also makes Superman the good of good in this universe, which I think Superman needs to be. People need to know they can rely on Superman to make the right choice and do the right thing. There's so much more I could talk to you guys about. Wendell Pierce, I wanted more Wendell Pierce as Perry White. I wanted more of that. I love Wendell Pierce. I think he's also perfect casting for this. Frank Grillo was there. The list goes on and on. Bradley Cooper played Jor-El in this, which was pretty interesting. And let's see. We had Cat Grant in there. We had a ton of people. Jimmy Olsen played a bigger part in this than I thought. He did a lot of the harder research. He kind of had an in with Luthor's camp. The actor they got to play Jimmy Olsen, fantastic. I've seen him in a ton of Skyler Gisondo, I believe is how you pronounce it. Absolutely awesome Jimmy Olsen. I don't know what the ages are supposed to be. They all, Clark, Lois, and Jimmy seem to be all around the same age, like late 20s, early 30s kind of age. So I wonder if they went older with Olsen for a reason, because Olsen, is usually like a teenager or early 20s kind of guy, but they all seem kind of a little bit more tight-knit and closer in age. But I love the relationship dynamic. They're like totally friends. Like I totally buy that they're all friends. They work together. They kind of, there's like a level of trust, but they all are very tenacious in their own right. They made Jimmy pretty tenacious. He wants to become, bigger, more important person at the Daily Planet. He's not just the photographer in this. Actually, I don't think he even took any pictures. I think he's just a young reporter, essentially. So that approach is interesting. And then we got a little bit of Millie Alcock as Supergirl. A little tease there. She's already familiar with, Kal-El. She called him bitch, like at one point. So that's where I'm gonna end it with the cast, because I could gush on and on. I'm already at 16 minutes, but the story beautiful. The story really is about hope and love and kindness and doing the right thing when everything seems wrong, essentially, and even when people in your life want to lead you astray, as Clark found out with the adjusted recording of Jor-El and his mom. And he decides to talk to Mom and Pa Kent, which, that's always a good thing to do. Talk to Mom and Pa Kent, because they won't lead you astray, and they reassured him that, he was on the right path. And he grew believing in those things, and he chose to be Superman by believing in those things. And it filled him with some doubt. And Superman is always questioning himself. And I really like to see that a lot throughout the movie. Even in the beginning, when him and Lois are talking, there's a scene where he says, I was just trying, I'm doing good. I'm trying not to have anyone die, basically. I'm trying to stop people from dying, and he couldn't understand why that was a problem. And now, obviously, there's a lot of political implications, because sometimes it's just politics to let people die. And that's just not acceptable to Superman. And I agree. Ultimately, I thought this was a beautiful representation of Superman. There was so much packed into this that I could talk for another probably 20 minutes about it. And maybe we'll do a longer form discussion. This review is already pretty long. But I'm so pleased with how this movie turned out. The action was phenomenal. What's great about this is that we're setting up the world for Superman and the DCU to get weird. And that's one of the things I love about DC Comics is they can get pretty fucking weird. And I think James Gunn is the one to bring that weirdness into these movies. Now, Superman, relatively, as a single character, is not that weird. He's quirky, but he's not weird. The world of Superman has a lot of weirdness to it. And I think we touched on that a little bit, and I think we're only going to expand further on that. And I'm really excited for the direction of the DCU so far. Creature Commandos, and now Superman, our titular, our top, cream of the crop Superman. I always loved Superman, but he wasn't, I was always a Batman guy. I have tons of Batman stuff, Batman everywhere. Most of the comics I have are Batman. And then I realized maybe I'm also a huge Superman fan. And this movie reinforced that. I got teary-eyed a couple times throughout the movie. It's just good to see people want to do good. It's fictional. It's Superman. It's a comic book. But it's always good and encouraging. It makes me hopeful myself to see people want to do good and to be driven by it. Because I've always felt that way. And I never understood people that didn't feel that way and didn't want to help people and didn't just want to be good people. And I know people have hard upbringings. Everybody has different upbringings and stuff like that. But there's a drive in Superman, and obviously he's an orphan. He's not from this planet. And he decided to take up the mantle of Superman to do good and help people. And it's just, Superman is such a beautiful story, and I appreciate it so much more now that I'm older. I think it's just something that we need right now. This movie is something that we need right now. And the problem, I think, is a lot of the people that probably should watch it aren't going to watch it or are not going to feel the weight of it. They're going to judge it based on their own vision of what the world should be. And that's unfortunate because I think this movie provides a lot of beautiful things. And I think it was a beautiful movie. Apart from being Superman, the comic book movie, I think any movie that props up love, kindness, and goodness is a great movie. I think it's a beautiful movie. And it's a very good comic book movie at that. It's a very good Superman story. And we have a lot of very, very diverse, very differently motivated characters in this world so far. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm already at 20 minutes. And I could keep going on, but I really, really love this movie. If I had to give a review, I think I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because I just think it worked. I think it genuinely worked, and I'm so pleased and happy with it. I'm like even thinking about it welling up. I'm probably going to see it again, but let me know what you guys think. I'm so excited to talk about the future of the DCU, to talk about Superman. This has renewed my faith in James Gunn and his direction at DC. I wasn't sure. I wasn't always the biggest James Gunn fan, but I feel the love and care for DC, for Superman in particular, in this film. And I think we're gonna be all right. And I appreciate James Gunn because I want my comic book movies weirder, but with heart and to be true to the characters and their motivations. So I think James Gunn understands that, and I think he'd probably agree. And I'm excited to see where him and Peter Safran take this universe. And I can't wait for Supergirl. I can't wait for Lanterns. Peacemaker Season 2. Should be fun. Clayface. Let me know what you guys think, what you thought of Superman. I know this was spoilers galore. What are your feelings going forward in the DCU? Tell me the things you liked. Tell me the things you didn't like. I think some of the music choices were weird. It was weird to hear a Noah and the Whale song in this movie. I love Noah and the Whale. Didn't expect to hear a Noah and the Whale song in a Superman movie, but it's totally fine. And they're a great band. I wish they would get back together. But besides the point, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. We're doing so much on this channel. I'm going to be covering DCU for as long as I possibly can. I love DC. I love Superman, Batman. I can't wait to find out who Wonder Woman's going to be. Can't wait to find out who Batman's going to be. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this universe. And I think that this universe is going to have a good long life if it stays fun, interesting, and tells great stories about these timeless characters that we all have grown to love, know and love, and have been watching and reading and listening about for our entire lives. So, again, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and stay hopeful, spread kindness, be nice to people. It's not that hard. Just try it. Give it a shot. Please do it for me. All right, see you guys later.